Welcome to another episode of I Don't Have the Answers, but let's talk about it anyway. I'm your host, Tim Four, and I want to thank you very much for joining me today. I also want to give a shout out and a thanks to my little sister for giving me the idea for our topic tonight. She really hates it when I call her my little sister. Anyway, on this week's episode, I want to talk about all the great things that have happened this year. I know, you must be thinking, this dude's got a head injury, some kind of concussion, something. Because I'm actually saying that there's something positive about this year. I assure you, I'm still in my right mind. I haven't lost it yet. Any day now, but not yet. This year has shown us that we are more than what we were before. It's shown us that we can adapt and we can survive. But we just have to be willing to do so. Do you know that there have been more home meals cooked and enjoyed since March than in years past? There have been more family game nights than I have seen in quite a while. And there have been more decisions made based on value instead of pleasure than this country has been party to in decades. Now I'm saying this not just from reading headlines and social media. This is a true experience talking. Before I get too deep into this next part, I'm going to need to give you some information to put it all in context. Now, my sisters and I came up in a household that was full of love, but not much else. They may not remember how rough we had it, but in the beginning, to call it rough would be painting it with rose-colored glasses. We had some young parents at the time, and they worked very hard to provide for us every single day. We honestly had no clue how close we were to having nothing at all, and I credit that to them. As we grew up, our situation improved considerably, but the humble beginnings were still there in the back of my mind, at least. You fast forward a bit to when I grew up and I thought that I knew everything. I was reminded how little that truly was. I ended up living in a van for a little more than half of a year. Primarily because my pride wouldn't let me ask for help. Then I took a step up. I lived for 6 months in a Motel 6. Yeah, that was a step up. In that time, I worked 7 days a week during a summer for a day labor company to pay for that motel. I got paid enough to buy something to eat every day and put a few dollars of gas in my tank to get me to work the next day. Clawing and scratching and working every day is what finally got me to the point where I had a room in someone's rundown trailer that I was able to live in while I saved up for my own place. I've never forgotten those days, and I never will. Since then, done pretty good for myself. I didn't do it alone, and I've had the pleasure of changing my spots, so to speak. And I've got a lot to show for it. So there goes the background, and now you're all caught up. So I want to jump into the next part. Now, thinking back on those early days, I never would have thought that I would have the opportunity to do what just happened to me a few weeks ago. I found myself working for a company doing a job that no longer made me feel comfortable with what I was doing. Nothing illegal, nothing immoral, just it was a little off from center. I was working for people that I no longer respected professionally. In the middle of all that, I was presented with 2 job offers from different companies. One was making an amazing paycheck, about 20% more than what I was making before. But it would be a little bit challenging. It was a salaried position that would have me working 70 plus hours for the first 6 months to a year. The second job made a little less, but the work-life balance was much better. So after a lot of thinking, contemplating, praying, I decided to put my family first. And I picked the second position. I turned down a job that would represent more money than I've ever made. And I did it because this year has shown me what's more important. A paycheck is nothing if I can't have time to spend with those that mean the most to me. Watching the news and seeing what is happening around our country has taught me to reevaluate that I see things. But that's just one experience, though. There's been a lot more that I've had the privilege to witness as well. For instance, as some of you know, the country has all of a sudden remembered that teachers and educators are important. We started paying attention to the fact that without them, we would be forced to educate our children ourselves. And I don't know about you, but if I were the sole source of information that would be the basis of my son's education, he'd be in trouble. I was too busy trying to remember Michael Jackson lyrics to remember the Pythagorean theorem. And to be quite honest, I had to Google that to be able to reference it here. And what do you think about professional sports? We've been watching reruns of sporting events that we already knew the outcome of for the past few months. The ratings for those shows are finally starting to dwindle. Now, I know that many people out there may disagree with me, but we have been surviving without sports just fine. Instead, during the 3-hour blocks where most men would probably ignore the world around them to watch a game, they're engaging in other activities. Sure, those activities may include housework and chores, but let's not split hairs. What I'm saying is that we have realized that there are more important things to focus our energy on. We have, in some cases, returned to a value-driven lifestyle that we were supposed to be living all along. So I was looking through some resources, and there's one source called Retail Info Systems that has said that a large percentage of consumers have begun placing more value on local providers instead of national chains. So that means we're consciously thinking about where our stuff is coming from instead of the label that's on the outside of the package. We've also shifted focus from luxury to necessity. That means people are buying things that they need more than what they want. I can't remember a time in my life when the consumer market was like this in the past. Also, this is big news to me. According to scientists, we have inadvertently helped our planet. They say it was an accident, and we can't actually be credited for doing something right. But because we've been locked in, so to speak, our carbon emissions have dropped to a level that hasn't been seen in over 10 years. All because we're staying home, talking to people that we love, and saving our money. So, do you see what I mean about great things happening this year? I know it's not all been great. I admit. There's been some tragedy. There's been some terrible things that have been going on. What I'm saying is that this year can either be remembered as the year that humanity died, or the year that humanity came back. The headline is entirely up to us. How do you plan on writing your headline for this year? I, for one, know exactly where I stand. And I hope that you do too. If you don't, drop me a line. We'll talk about it. As I said, I don't have the answers, but I will talk about it. Now, that's all the time I've got today for this show. But I wanted to ask you all for some help on an upcoming show. I'm planning on doing an episode that talks about small business owners. I want to highlight their struggles and successes, the good and the bad. So I'm asking you, drop me a line if you'd like to be a part of it. Maybe on air, maybe not. Maybe just talking a little bit. Who knows? You might be on the show next time when I say, I don't have the answers. But let's talk about it anyway. Thanks, folks. I appreciate your time. Have a good week.